So to decorate this little train cake for a 4-year-old, I think it is, a 4 or 5-year-old, I've covered my cake in green icing and the boarding green icing as well. My customer has given me this Flying Scotsman little model to put on the top, which I'm going to... She did give me a carriage as well, but I think that the cake's not big enough to have both of those on. So I'm going to place the Flying Scotsman coming across. This is the front of the cake, so it's going to be coming across the cake sort of diagonally. And so let's make a start. Okay, so I'm just speeding this up so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. I'm using some brown chocolate flavoured fondant and I'm just rolling it out until it's probably a couple of millimetres thick. And then I'm going to use a little impression mat that I have that looks like wood. If you haven't got something like that, then you can just use the end of a tool to make wood-like impressions. Or you could just leave it plain if you wanted to. So I'm just going to trim this a little bit. And what I'm going to use this for is the slats on the railway track. So I'm just doing it by eye and cutting little, maybe 1 centimetre wide slats. And I'm going to just lay them across the cake where I want the train track to go. So as I said before, it's going to be slightly diagonally across this cake. And I'm just laying them with maybe 1.5 centimetres in between each slat, but you can just do it how you want to. And then I'm just going to put 2 on the front as well, because we're doing a little tunnel coming out of the front of the cake. So for the next part, I'm going to make the silver rails on the train track. So I've just got some grey fondant, giving it a good old sort of roll between my palms to get rid of the cracks, and just roll it out in a long sausage to make sure that you've got the right length. And then again by eye, I'm just cutting 2 long thin straight strips to place across the slats that we've just made. So I'm just going to check that for length and lay that along there, and then do a second one and do the same thing. And once I'm happy with where they are, I'm just trimming the ends off each one, being careful not to cut the fondant underneath, and then just smooth off the ends of each track. Just check that the train sits nicely on there. You might want to, as I have, I put them too close together, so I'm just moving them apart to make sure that they sit under the wheels of the train. Okay, so we're just going to make the entrance to the tunnel on the front of the cake now. So with some black fondant, just make it nice and smooth, and then roll it out again to probably about 2 millimetres thick. And then cut the bottom off so that you've got a nice flat surface to work with, and then just by eye again, do a little tunnel shape and stick that onto the front of the cake. So one of my favourite ways of making a cake like this look really great is by using little rocks, and I like to make them sort of a marbly effect because it just looks really effective. So what I'm doing here is I've got 3 different colours of fondant, and I'm just breaking it up into little pieces and making those into sausages, because I'm going to lay them all together, as you can see me doing here. So 1 of each colour, and just lay them all together to make one great big sausage. And we're going to use a marble effect to get the stones to make them look really good. So once you've rolled out all the little sausages, you can start squishing them together a bit, roll them into a sausage, and then I twist them, and then half the sausage, and then keep rolling, and then twist, and then double over, and then roll, and then twist, and double over, and roll, until you've got a really nice marble effect. So don't mix it too much, or you start merging the colours and you lose the effect. But this is as you can see, a nice marbly ball now. So then what I do is roll it into one big long sausage and just roughly cut it up into different sized pieces. Don't make them uniform because rocks aren't uniform in nature, so just make them all different sizes and then roll them between your palms, and then you can squish them and fold them and do anything you like to them. But what I'm doing is using these as the stones that kind of go around the outside of the tunnel, as you can see. So I've made a keystone at the top, and just keep adding them as you go round until you get to the bottom. Now we've got to the bottom on one side, so just do the same on the other side to fill in all the gaps. The fondant's quite nice and fresh, so it should stick of its own accord without needing any water or edible glue. There we go, and that's the tunnel. I think that looks really effective like that. Now you can use the rest of the fondant that you've got left to make little stones, so you could just shape them however you like. Don't be too uniform about that because, as I say, rocks aren't uniform. So I'd forgotten to do the little tracks on the bottom bit here, so that's what I'm just going to do now. So again, cutting out one long thin strip and just using that for each track. So place it on and then trim it to the length that you need. And just straighten up the end. And now, as I was saying, I'm just going to rough cut the rest of this stone fondant and just squidge and shape into little rock style formations and just place them in 2s and 3s around the base of the cake, just to make them look like little piles of rocks. So now I'm going to make a little tree for the back of the cake. So with some green icing, I'm just making it into kind of almost like a teardrop shape. So I'm going to flatten the bottom and make it into a conical shape. Taking some scissors, just start snipping around the tree, being really careful obviously of your fingers, but just insert the ends of your scissors and snip and pull outwards, and you'll see you start getting a really nice tree effect. And it's easy enough to do a little bush as well. So another little piece of green fondant and flatten its bottom, as it were. And then you can just use any tool you like. I've got one that's kind of a star-shaped tool at the end, and just start prodding little holes all over the place. But you could easily do it with the end of a paintbrush or anything that you've got that can just sort of stick in, and just make sure you do loads of little indentations and it looks like a nice little bush. So just to add some colour to the whole effect, I'm going to cut out some little red flowers. I'm using a little sort of daisy cutter for this, and just place them all over. Apologies for not being able to see where I'm putting them. It wasn't a great camera angle, but I'm just placing them on the little bush. I'm going to put some on the tree, some next to the tracks, some next to the rocks. So just a little bit of colour to bring the whole thing to life. I'm also going to do the same with some yellow flowers. Again, put that on the tree, just make it look really nice and colourful. So I'm using yellow again to cut out the number 5, and I'm going to stick that, I think, on the little tunnel. If you haven't got number cutters, you can always just you can roll out a really long thin sausage and make a little 5 with that, but it's dead handy to have the cutters. And then to move on, I'm going to cut out the birthday boy's name with little cutters that I just bought off the internet. They're really handy, really easy to use. I'm just going to put his name on the top as a finishing touch. Just arrange the letters before you stick them on, otherwise you end up with a name that's off centre or not in the right place or not lined up. And finally, as a little finishing touch, I'm just going to make some tiny little grass rolls, for want of a better phrase. This is something I've just sort of developed myself. Roll out a little sausage of green, cut a flat line along the bottom, and then just start cutting out as if you were cutting out like a row of spiky grass to go around the bottom. So just little triangles, as you can see, but not going right to the bottom. So you've got a solid ribbon on the bottom and then sort of spikes of grass going along the top. And then make the ends straight, and then you're just going to pick it up, and as you can see here, roll it along the bottom, putting the pressure on the bottom though, not the top, so that the top sort of sticks out. And then just arrange the top, make some sort of wavy and pointing in different directions, cut off a little bit of the bottom, and then you can just place that really nicely all over. You do a few of those and there we have a really simple train cake. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.